Good morning, everybody. Welcome to another episode of Groovy Tuesday stroke Pergamano School. My name is Paul Church here, Clarity Stamp in the UK, Pergamano Limited as well. And take a while for people to join us. So I'm just going to waffle for a first few minutes. How are we all doing today? I can see we've got some lovely people. Let me switch on the chat. There we go. See when people start saying good morning, good morning, good morning. Nice cup of coffee. Thank you to the lovely Jilly. There we come. Who's first in the room today? Susan Young, followed by Hilda Smith, and then Linda Walker. Good morning, ladies. I hope you're well. Oh, my phone. Let's have a look. That should be Jilly. Sound is good. Thank you, Jilly. So the lovely Jilly is in the room with you today. So if you've got any questions, ask away. Good morning, good morning, good morning, everybody. Jill, Pamela, Bernie. How are we all doing today? Last Tuesday seems an age ago. I don't know what's happened in between last Tuesday. Just losing track of days. And this morning, all of a sudden, it was like I had a quick catch up with Linda about half hour ago. And then all of a sudden, the time just went whoosh. We've got 3 minutes to go. Better put a shirt on. Better look a bit presentable. So I've got a nice floral shirt on today to go with the frosted floral February. So without further ado, I think it's time. There's plenty of people in the room now. It's time to introduce the lovely lady herself, Linda Williams.
Good morning.
Good morning, Linda.
I was just thinking, I'll have to find something floral to compete with your shirt.
You could have made an effort, Linda.
You wait,
Well,
next week
let me
I'll
come
find
over this.
something.
Yeah, in between, sort of, we have a bit of a break. See what you can come up with.
Yeah.
Get Rob. I'm sure Rob must have a Flower Power shirt or something from back in the day.
I keep threatening every time we see a fancy shirt on TV. You got to get your sunglasses outside. I'm going to buy you one of those. And he tells me, get lost.
He'd suit a really nice bright shirt with Mr. Rob.
He does actually wear brighter shirts on holiday. I don't think he'd be seen dead in them in this country, though.
I think when we go on holiday, I think we all do that, don't we? I mean, I've got sort of like bright yellow swimming trunks, like shorts. I wouldn't wear them walking around Tunbridge Wells, but on holiday it's different, isn't it?
I mean, I've worked hard on Rob over the years. I mean, when I first met him, he used to wear socks and sandals. It took me a while to get him. I remember my daughter bought him a pair of socks for Christmas, and they had actually the marks of the sandals on them. It's a big laughing point in our family, Rob, with his socks and his sandals.
Apparently, it's quite fashionable now. I think a lot of the youngsters are sort of. I think it's quite in some of the European companies. It's quite trendy to wear socks with sandals.
Yeah.
So there you go.
And Crocs.
Yeah, socks and Crocs. Trend setting is our Rob.
Yeah.
So we're continuing with our beautiful frosted floral overlays during the Pergamano School this month. And last week we did a little bit of. I can't find my piece that I did last week. This room looks as if there's been snow.
You did show me. You did pan over it earlier on.
I did. I've tidied the desk. I'm just glad you can't see the floor. It looks like confetti. But all will be revealed about that a little bit later on during the hour.
We forgive you. We forgive you
Thank
on that
you.
point.
So the beautiful. I have got. I think I've got the frosted. No, I don't know what I have got.
I've probably got it here.
I was just looking for the pack that we're working on.
I've got it.
Have you got it there, Linda? Sorry, I'm so disorganised this morning.
Get the pack out. I've got the embossing side of it. So
we've got 5 different sets in the collection, but for during the month of February, we're looking at the beautiful the beautiful Christmas rose. And last week you showed us some beautiful pictures, didn't you, of all the different. The hellebore, wasn't it? It's another name for it. Yeah,
that's the other name for it. And I've got the pictures. I'll show you the pictures. I thought we'd get on with the embossing today and next week as well. So we'll we'll take you to the halfway point today, and we'll take you to the finishing stages next week. And then
Okay.
I might, if I can indulge in this one, I'll try and show you how to do that. All right?
Wow.
It's really not as difficult as it looks.
I've got one of them. I've got one of them here. Hang on.
Yeah.
Here's one I made. Here's one I made earlier.
See, it wasn't difficult, was it?
It wasn't. No, it took me all of 2 minutes to walk down the stairs and get it off the shelf.
So yeah, so this is the pack, and in the pack you've got your instructions on how to do the Christmas rose. It all depends which pack you've got. There are, what were there, 5, Paul? Was
5,
it?
yes. You've got
5
the tulip, the amaryllis, the rose, and I've been given a set now, and
Fuchsia.
the fuchsia.
Yeah.
That's it.
Okay, so you get this inside there as well. So it's a comprehensive guide to the stages of embossing. I'm taking you through these stages. Everybody embosses differently, so you may progress a little bit quicker on your first or second emboss. All I'm trying to do at this point is slow everybody down, because everybody seems to, a lot of new people seem to emboss too quickly, and it you break the paper, the fibers in the paper that way. So you've got comprehensive guide on the stages. Stage 8 or 9 would be a really nice embossed image if you've taken your time. We don't need to go to stage 8 for this effect, because we don't want to hide the colouring underneath. So we probably will go to the stage 5 or maybe 6. Really all depends on how heavy you're going. And if you go to the back, you've got a progress record, which is really good, and you can tick off the stages that you're at if you're really not sure.
I think that's a really good idea to have that at the back, because often, I mean, if a lot of people are like me at home and sort of you'll put it down and then you'll come back to me and think, oh, what level did I do? Where have I got? And then I think that's where, as you say, you can then go over it too much.
And in there, you've got a practice sheet, which looks something like...
That's what we was working on last week, wasn't we?
Another little, we'll start ourselves off with a practice sheet again today. So we worked on the practice sheet last week before. Before I said, it's best to work on a practice sheet and then go to your best piece and start doing it, just to get your eye in. So I need to always get my eye in before I actually go to my best piece that I'm going to make a project out of. So, and here you'll see the stages. This is it as it looks on your sheet. And then you start to emboss, and this is probably halfway along. And then at the end, you can rub out these ink marks, because it's very fine ink printed on your parchment, on the front of your parchment, and you can actually rub it out with the Faber-Castell white rubber. It takes a little bit of rubbing, do it on a hard surface, but if you want that nice shaded look, you can rub it out. You don't have to rub it out. If you like the lines, then that's entirely up to you. Or you can rub part of it out and leave part of the lines in, which is quite nice in itself, you know. If you think part of your flower isn't quite well defined, well, leave that little bit of the line in. You get to know, you know, so you get that. So, and in this, you've got a rough guide of the frosted overlay technique, a description, a little bit about embossing and colouring, and then there are the others: the rose, the tulip, the amaryllis, and the fuchsia. So you get 4 Christmas rose printed on A5 parchment, so the white prints. 1 Christmas rose elements, which are the little parts for you to practice on. Those are the elements. So you get 1 of those. 4 A5 plain parchment. 1 Christmas rose printed in black on white paper, which is, find it, which is this one. Now the reason you've got that, because it acts as a pattern. It's the old-fashioned way, the old traditional way of doing parchment craft, you put a plain piece of parchment on top, and then you do your colouring. So you've got no hard outlines. I'll show you how to do that.
And that's what gives you that beautiful,
And
soft,
that's what gives you
natural
that.
look, doesn't it?
So you can see there are no hard outlines. There's no tracing involved in this. It's just coloured on top of the pattern, which is the way we used to do it years ago, with the traditional way. And you've got the Christmas rose printed in full colour on the A5 white. So you get one of those. And you've also got the Christmas rose printed on black.
Lovely.
In
It's
black.
a really nice sort of comprehensive kit, isn't it? So
Yeah.
and even if you're sort of thinking, okay, well, I like parchment craft, but maybe I'm not into groovy, then this is a great sort of, it crosses over sort of, for me, it crosses over that traditional plus modern as well, in relation to, you've got the traditional techniques, but then also you've got sort of like the groovy side to it, because it's the skills we would have learned by using the groovy plates to give us that line art. But if you're tuning in for the first time, you think, oh, I really like look at this, then you haven't got to buy the whole groovy system. We do an accessories kit that gives you a blue mat, it gives you the 2 wooden tools and the eraser pencil as well. So that would be a really sort of good starting point. And then all you would need would be your colouring pencils. So don't think, oh, I've got to invest in this. You haven't, because we've put that little kit together. And I think so. And then, but for me, I think you would become addicted, because you're sort of jumping ahead of the techniques, aren't you, really?
Yes. Yeah. There's a lot of techniques to learn, and I mean, you can stop wherever you like. You can choose your own. I mean, some people prefer to colour with felt tips. Some people prefer to colour with pencils. Pencils are my choice, my main choice, my favourites to colour with. But I mean, you can emboss in so many different ways. You can colour in so many different ways. There's such a lot of things to learn, but you don't have to learn them all. You can pick the little bits that you want to learn. And
exactly, and I think this is what's great about this Pergamano school and the Groovy Tuesdays, that whole library is there for you to go back. So even if you're joining us for the first time today and you're thinking, oh, I've missed what's lesson 1, lesson whatever, go to our website. We've got a section dedicated totally to the Pergamano school, so you can go back and watch, or you can go to our YouTube channel and you can see all the Groovy Tuesdays, all the Pergamano schools, all the Shacks, and there's loads and loads of video tutorials as well using the jelly plate. So whatever type of craft that you're into, apart from soft craft, we haven't gone down that road just yet. I think I'd need to improve my knitting skills a little bit, advance from scarves to maybe something else. But yeah, there's a whole library and it's all free of charge, and you can follow it at your own pace.
Such a wealth, isn't there? Such a wealth of
that's right, yeah.
knowledge.
So what I'm going to pass over to the lovely Linda. So I'm just going to sit and admire now and watch and learn.
Right. Let me show you. So our aim is to get to this stage, okay, where you've got some really nice shadow embossing there. So, and you can see the lines have been rubbed out, so you can see the light and the shade. I'll recap some of the things that I told you last week. So where you can see one petal laying on top of another, you've got a little bit of shading. Okay, shading in the middle because it's quite dark in there. A little bit of shading there. So we can either emboss on the back, which gives you a flower, a petals that curve that way.
Yeah.
Or if you emboss it on the front, you've got petals that are curved that way, like a little cup. Now, you might think that these petals here have been embossed that way, and those petals have been embossed that way. So those have been done from the back, and those have been done from the front. I'm not going to show you that. It's up to you to do that at home if you feel you want to do it this way. What I'm doing is I'm showing you how to emboss it all from the back, because we have a lot of new people on here. Once we start turning over from the back to the front to the back to the front, I find new people get confused. So it's entirely up to you. If you do emboss on the front, you need to a little bit of cellophane bag, cello bag, and then you need to hold it taut with your fingers, and then you need to emboss over the cello bag. Stops the paper from shining, and it also, if you've got white ink on the front, these tools will actually, the metal tools will actually turn the ink black. So it's very important with this type of embossing. If you
wow. Oh, that's definitely good to know that. You don't want it to go black.
It can do, yeah. I don't know. I think it mixes with the ink or something. Whether it would happen on these, I don't know. But if we traced with white ink years ago, then the ball tools would turn the ink black. So if you were tracing with pencil, then, you know, that wouldn't happen. But your parchment would still go shiny. Okay? So you can see where we've introduced some shading. Some people were saying, I did notice that some people were having problems leaving gaps. I'll go through that in a minute. The gaps aren't particularly obvious. I've asked people just to do two layers with the 6mm ball tool as homework. Okay, so let me go. So let me recap about the direction of the stroke. So here's my enlargement, okay? And you can see this is an enlargement of the actual print. So you can see here, I've actually put in directional lines. These are to help you with your embossing. You can rub these out after, you can leave them in on your print. But these you can see, they're all going in different ways. Even on one petal, if you take one petal, if I draw that in, that's going that way, that's going that way. So on this, you'd emboss in the middle. I'm going to leave a little bit of gap, but you won't leave a gap. So as you go around, you're actually turning. Can you see? So it's difficult to show on an actual piece of parchment.
No, that makes perfect sense, because obviously a petal has got that natural shape to it, hasn't it?
Exactly.
So, and if you was to just keep going straight, it wouldn't look right.
No, and if you start in the middle, it's almost straight down. So where you can see my lines are close together, there, my indication lines are close together. That's where I think I did that to help you to leave a little gap. You don't have to leave a gap in the same place. This is, you know, this is to help people that are new. So if you left a little gap there, if you haven't left a gap, it doesn't matter. We can put these gaps in later, leave a little gap there. So you can see I'm starting to curve inwards now. Leave a little gap there. So I would work this way, okay? I'd be flicking my ball tool away.
So you flick away, some people flick towards them.
Some people flick towards them. Might want to leave a little gap there.
Even that looks quite nice with just a black pen.
Yeah. But you get the gist, don't you? I mean, with these are a little bit more awkward, the ivy leaves, so you're going to go down there. And I'd want to leave a gap in the middle so that it would indicate that there's a vein there.
Yeah.
So when you're embossing, you do some long strokes, some short strokes, some long strokes. Not one long, one short, all right? It's too uniform. So that should go around that way.
And this is what we looked at last week, didn't we, in the in lesson 1 on the practice sheet, just to get our eye in, just to work on the pressure and put that undercoat in.
Yeah, and I'd leave a little gap there as well. I did it in pencil last week, and I thought, well, you couldn't see it very well. So you can see on this leaf, these strokes are going that way, and these strokes are going that way. Okay. And when you come to there, those strokes will be going that way.
So the lines that are printed on the white parchment or the clear parchment but printed in white, those guidelines are there to help in relation, as you say, to the direction in which
That's
we
right.
should be doing that.
Yeah. And if you leave where you see that this little dip here, those dips, if you were to leave a gap there in your embossing, it makes it easier then when you come round and that's maybe not going in the same direction as that.
Oh, I see.
So then that will help you. So if I leave a little gap there, that's going that way. So I'm going to leave a little gap because that's going that way.
So that they don't overlap one another and then you lose the shape of the leaf.
Yeah, because when you get, I mean, with the 6mm ball tool, when you do this, it's not very noticeable. But now I'm starting to go down to the smaller tools. I'm going to use the 4.5 today. It's going to become more noticeable. And then as you move down the tools, perhaps I do this much with my 6mm ball tool. And then when I come in with the 4.5mm ball tool, I might do this much. And then as we go down the tools, the smaller tools, the 3mm, I might do this much. And then when you're using the 3mm ball tool, you could do some short strokes and then all of a sudden flick it a little bit. So you do a little bit and flick it a bit more, and so that each layer then actually blends in. So that will blend, if you flick it a little bit there, that will blend in. Does that make sense?
It does, yeah. So when we look at that finished piece then, Linda, that you had with those beautiful doodle frames around it.
Yes.
Hint, hint, nudge, nudge. So when we look at the whitest part of those flowers, that's where we've started off with the 6, we've gone down to the, and because we're always starting at that same edge of the flower, the parchment gets whiter and whiter as the ball tool gets smaller and smaller.
Exactly.
Beautiful. There's been a request that after Pergamano school, would you be able to post that card onto Groovy Worldwide, Linda, so that people can have a look at that in a little bit more detail?
Of course I will, yeah. I'll put a few of them on. So if you have a look, you see these little areas here. You wouldn't be able to do that with a 6mm ball tool.
No.
And likewise, you wouldn't be able to do all this embossing with that small tool. I would have said that would be a 1 and then maybe a 0.5mm to hook it around.
Yeah.
There. Okay. I do use them all when I'm doing this, but you've got to use them with confidence. Okay. So with this one, I started off with a 6mm ball tool and then the 4.5, a little bit less, and then the 3mm, and then the 1mm, and then 0.5.
Beautiful.
Okay? So that it gives you then that gradual transition, and you cannot see where one tool starts and the other one finishes.
No, it looks as if it's just been sort of, I suppose it's like the colouring, isn't it, with the shading and with colouring, where you've got that, the more if you go on lightly to start with, and if you keep going over in the same area, it's likely to get darker. So yeah, beautiful.
Yeah. So this is where I try to slow you down. You have to leave. If you leave it overnight, one layer at a time, leave it overnight, then another layer, leave it overnight. And if you're in a rush, you've got to leave it about 20 minutes between the layers, at least half an hour. But you've got to really slow yourself down. You've got to. If you're trying to do it quickly, I would say you need more layers actually, and you need to make your layers a bit lighter.
So not more pressure, less more
pressure.
layers, but less pressure.
Yeah, definitely.
Okay.
I don't know. Last week I set a challenge. I don't know if anybody did it. I asked someone to emboss one of their flowers. So much that it became cotton wool. I don't know if anybody tried it. And then I wanted them to try just embossing a little bit a day and then just to see this, to find the spring. I want you to find the spring in your parchment. So
Come on, hands up in the room. And did anyone
did
do
anyone
what?
do it? I
Do
did
their
it this
homework?
morning. Here's one I did earlier. Now, I don't know if you can see it. Let's have a look.
See, to me, that looks lovely.
Yeah, but can you see it's that? Can you see the crisp? You can see it. I can see it plainly. Can you see the crisscrossing fibers?
Yes, I can. Yeah.
That's not smooth, is it?
No, it's not. It when you go up close, you can see it. It does, as you say, reveal that sort of cotton wool look.
And
Yeah.
there, look, I've got.
Yeah.
I did it so hard there that I've got little. It's starting to crack.
Yeah.
Plus, when I press it, can you hear it?
Oh yeah.
Shouldn't be doing that actually.
Oh, that could be a new thing. Clickety click.
It's gone. It makes it go almost hard, you know.
Yeah.
So I mean that I did that in a couple of minutes. You know, it was a really bad embossing example, but I just wanted you to see that. And if you compare that, to that, it's very
Yeah.
white, isn't it? But
Yes, it is.
you know, it's overly white. Those white bits should just be on the tips. There's not that's shaded better than that, isn't it?
Yeah.
When you look at it, it's
Yeah.
more of a natural look. But with this one, you've hardly got any light and shade. It's only where I've left the grey. So, and what will happen in time is, well, if you put that in the post, it would flatten, and some bits would be raised and some bits would be flat. And it would, if I did it a bit more now, the whole piece would start to wrinkle. So if
And
you've got
crack
that,
as well. I've had it crack before where I've gone into,
yes,
I've done that, and I thought, oh, I remember in the early days, that was what my white work was like, because I was impatient and heavy-handed. And then I
yeah,
can go back to it a couple of months later and look at it, and it has actually cracked. It's as if the fibers have dried
yes,
out.
exactly, yeah. So if you put it into context, if you put that in there and you did them all the same, so what you're doing then is you're stretching all of this, stretching, not letting it go back, stretching all of these, and these bits where you haven't embossed are still holding the piece of parchment together. They're the
Yeah.
anchor points for your piece of parchment. So all of these now are stretched to the hilt. So what happens is the whole thing becomes distorted. You get big creases and you cannot flatten it out to put it on a card.
Right. Okay.
So all these bits, you put in stress on all this paper inside, and then you can no longer keep it flat. Okay.
Yeah. Brilliant. Well,
Right.
not brilliant, but
Yeah. Learning about the embossing is as important as actually doing it, you know? So what we did last week, and we're going to have a little practice now. So remember we did this one. I don't know which is the back and which is the front. No, I did it so lightly. Yeah, that's the back. Remember we had a little practice.
that's right. Yeah.
We drew a line and we practiced keeping it on the line. So the ball tool, we used the 6mm ball tool, and what I said was it's roughly over half, if you place it halfway over the line, and because the ball tool hits the paper right in the middle, there's only a small bit that hits the paper. So it's perfectly placed. So when you're embossing on your petals, it's from the outside edge in. That's what we're doing anyway. You might want to do a flower where you've embossed it from the center out, and all your colouring then would be on the outside. It's entirely up to you. But somebody said they had problems. I'm going to emboss a little bit harder now, leaving the gaps. So emboss a bit, leave a gap, leave another gap. So don't make your gaps uniform. It looks a bit silly if all the gaps are together and in they're equidistant. So what happens is, when you're embossing your petals, you say you're finding it hard to leave the gaps. You may not be able to see the gaps actually because you're embossing so lightly. So once you start adding the layers, if you think you haven't got enough gaps, as you go along, you can still introduce the gaps, but they won't be quite as grey as the other ones, the ones where you've been able to leave a gap. So
Yeah.
even though you failed to leave a gap, you can introduce them later on. Thus, you're giving yourself even more shading. So you see that one there where I've embossed. If I
Yeah.
take a smaller tool, I can emboss with a 4mm there. And then I can introduce a gap in that. So it's not quite
Oh, I see. Yes.
okay. So if you can't do it with a 6mm ball tool, it's not a problem. It can come later, and you can go in then in with a smaller tool later on and introduce another gap in a different place. All this shading in different places adds to the effect.
Yeah.
And the length.
That's good to know, because again, I know when I was first doing this type of shadow embossing, I always struggled with getting the gaps, and then sometimes the gaps were too big, some were too narrow. But so by reducing the size of the ball tool over the various layers allowed me to then reintroduce.
Yes, and you can go, you think, I've left so much of a gap there. So you can go back in with your 6mm ball tool. Now that the gaps are more apparent, you can actually, let's close it up with a smaller tool, with a 4.5mm ball tool. And let's make that a really narrow gap. Let's close that one up. Or you could go in then and close it up even more. You can have a really, really fine gap there.
Mm.
I hardly see it, but it is there. Okay. And someone else had difficulty if you've got a big petal. When I say it's a press and a flick, when you flick off, and if you've got a big petal, you're not covering this area here. If you go a little bit slower and then flick off, you can extend your lines. Okay, so go a bit slower and then flick off.
See, I wouldn't have thought that, but it's obvious now that you've said that.
Yeah.
By going slower, it automatically makes you slow down the flick off, doesn't it?
Yeah, yeah.
It's that psychological thing.
Yes, but when you go slower, make sure it's the same pressure all along. You can go as far as you want.
Mm.
It all depends how much of the sweep your hand allows you to do.
I suppose
Okay?
it'd be the same principle if that was like the stem of a rose or something like that.
Exactly. And when I did the stems of the Christmas rose, I did them with a 6mm ball tool. If you're nervous, you can do them with your 4mm, but that's a really narrow gap. But you can't actually get in there with a 6mm ball tool. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
So let's have a little practice. So I'm going to move now to my 4.5mm ball tool. Okay. So that's got 2 layers on it. So I'm going to do exactly the same. So it's a press and a flick with the 4.5mm.
Are you able to come in any closer, Linda, on that, or?
Yeah. Hold on.
Yay.
Is that better?
Yeah, that's brilliant.
I'm getting quite a dab hand at these cameras.
Yeah, I know. We'll
So,
make a producer and director out of you yet.
so you can see the strokes are actually turning in there. Okay, I'll do
And
half.
you can see straight away how that has gone whiter already.
Yeah. Once you start moving down the tools, a 6mm can be a bit boring, you think, oh, there's nothing happening here. But if you give that basic, your base layer with a 6mm ball tool, once you've got that decent basic base coat, it helps a lot with what goes on top then, with the rest of your layers. So I always try and start at the middle of my petal, which gives me the area that I should be sweeping in. So some long, some short. I'm going to leave a little gap there.
I suppose it's like painting, isn't it? If you put an undercoat on, if you're painting a wall, you put the undercoat on, then it gives you a better finish when you put the
base
top
coat,
one on.
doesn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah. So this is going to be, I'm going to do, try and show you here on this one. So I'm going to go around the top and make sure the light is catching that bit there, and around the bottom to give a little bit of shape. And I'm going to try and introduce a little bit of shadow in there.
Yeah.
Okay, so I'm going to go along the top. We'll go to our proper piece in a minute. I've done my homework and I've done mine with 2 coats on. So this is just to get your hand in, okay? And then from this little turn it the same way. This little lip here.
Yeah.
So I'm going to do that. I'm just going to go around the outside edge and I'm not going to do anything there. So just give it a little bit of shading in there. A little bit around the bottom to give it some shape. And then a little bit along the top. You can always change it later if you want. So you can see now I've done
Just come
that one.
down a little bit, Linda. There we go.
You can see I've done that one and those.
Yeah, it really stands out.
The one there. That one hasn't been done yet. So I'll go to my piece that I did for my homework. So there we are.
And how long did your homework take you, Linda?
I did it over 2 days. So I did 1 layer one day and 1 layer the next day. So that's 2 days worth of work, okay?
So you can see, and it's great because now you can see that white print on the parchment, can't you?
Yeah, yeah. And I've written front.
Front.
Because even I make mistakes. There is a little F there. If you're not sure, write front on there as well. I put it in black because I thought, well, I can't fail not to see that. And you can see I put a little mark up there.
Yeah.
I always put a little mark where I start. So I always start on this one, and I'll work my way around to where I started, and then I'll do the ones in the middle. Right? Because what happens is, I find when you're doing a big subject, it doesn't really matter. Sometimes where you can see where you've been, but if your layers are very, very light with the 6mm ball tool, you sometimes can't tell how many, if you've actually done that flower. So I tend to work in a circle, and it's particularly important if you're doing more than 1 layer in one sitting. So you need to, rather than say I wanted to put 2 layers on this today, straight away, one after the other, I wouldn't put 2 layers on that flower and 2 layers on that flower. I'd do 1 layer. I do the whole thing with 1 layer. By the time I've got round it, it's had a little bit of a chance to rest. Okay?
Yeah.
So turn it over. I've already got tumble dryer sheet on it. It's well lubricated. So I'm going to start now with this one here. So I've still got my 4.5mm ball tool, and just start in the middle and sweep around. I'm going to leave a little gap there. And then start the other side. Little gap.
A question, Linda, just come to me. I don't know if anybody else wants to know, but I do. When you reduce the size of the ball tools, do you also reduce the pressure, or do you maintain the same pressure throughout?
No, I'm maintaining the same pressure for the first couple of layers, but the more your parchment is embossed, when it's had a good embossing, I can actually press a little bit harder.
Right.
Okay, I'm using the same pressure now, but it's going wetter because I've got the smaller ball tool. But you see, you couldn't start with this one because you wouldn't get, it'd be very difficult to get a nice smooth embossed line because it's the smaller the tool, the more stripes you're going to get, you know.
I suppose that's like same. I know I keep referring. I don't know why I'm keep referring to painting a wall, but I suppose if you've got a 6-inch brush, you're going to get a better coverage than you would with a 2-inch brush.
Yes, definitely. Yeah. So I'm going to go on to this one now. I'm going to do those little ones in the front. And we're off for time. Well, we're all right. I don't think I'm going to get round it all, but but I want to show you the second coat. Well, no, this is the third. It'll be the fourth coat then, won't it? But I want to show it to you, but I don't want you to do it until tomorrow. That's me.
You can definitely see it changing whiteness.
Definitely. And another thing, you see, if you take your time, and if I was to make a little mistake now, because I'm doing it so lightly, I can correct it later on with smaller tools. And you probably wouldn't notice that I'd made a mistake.
I suppose that just comes with sort of practice and experience, doesn't it? And
Yes.
so, and the confidence, and that's what we're giving now. We're giving people the confidence to give it a go and see what happens.
Exactly. And I'm trying to leave, and these back ones, it is a bit difficult to leave that space there because it's such a small area, to leave the gap and to maintain the direction of the strokes. And with these little ones, like, you can actually bring in a 3mm ball tool at this point, but still with the same amount of pressure. So that then will start to whiten those little tips. If you can leave it till later and just do it with the 3 and with a 4.5 and then bring the 3 in later, it's up to you. If you're struggling with these little areas like that, this area here, if you're struggling with that, just the very point there, but then I would go back in with a 4.5. So I'm leaving that little bit of a gap in the middle there. So on to this one.
So there's a question I've just seen pop up from the lovely Pat Hosking. Hi, Pat.
Hi, Pat.
So she said, you briefly mentioned using a tumble dryer sheet. Could you ask Linda if she would repeat that after each various resting time?
I've not actually had to do that. I don't know, it might be the quality of my tumble dryer sheet, I don't know. But certainly if the ball tool is dragging, then yes. It doesn't do the parchment any harm. You don't need to suffer with the roughness of the tool on the paper. Just give it another rub over. It really doesn't matter. I've never had to do it. I've always found that once I've put one layer of tumble dryer sheet, it just it seems to last through to the end of the embossing.
Right, okay. There we go, Pat. I hope that helped. And somebody else asked that question as well. Who is that? It was Pauline as well.
Oh, bless her. Pat is a renowned designer in parchment craft and a beautiful painter. And she's having trouble with her eyes, bless her. And she sent me 2 massive boxes of all her inspiration, some of her paintings, some of her bits of parchment, some of her patterns. Wow. 2 huge boxes this week. Thank you so much, Pat. She's actually shared all her thoughts with me, and I think that's an amazing thing for a designer to do, to actually give your stuff to somebody else, to give them inspiration. I think is the kindest gesture that any designer could ever give to anybody else. I don't know that I could share all my bits and pieces, and she's made me think of how kind it is to. So Pat, when I've gone through all the boxes, you'll be seeing bits of your designs turning up in groovy plates.
Wow, amazing.
So
Wow, I look forward to
I
that.
would definitely give her credit when I've used her bits and pieces. Oh, I'm like a kid in a sweet shop. You should see what she sent me.
I bet. Wow.
It's amazing. And
Fantastic.
all these years of things that she's kept for inspiration and her own artwork that she's and her own patterns that she's designed, you know. So I thought it was amazing. So generous.
Beautiful. So there's a question from Julia. Would you use Pergasoft in the same way? So when because traditionally you would use Pergasoft, didn't you, when you was doing the embossing and perforating?
Yeah, I haven't got one here.
So do you dip the
it's a little round pot. You just dip the tool in and emboss away.
And then once you've done that in one area once, would you need to repeat that process?
You've got to keep Pergasoft is something you've got to keep dipping in because you're only spreading it on the bit that you're doing.
Okay.
So the only thing with Pergasoft is good, but the only thing with that then is that you've got to keep reusing it, and you've got to. I do one pattern and I probably have to give it another dip again, you know.
Right. Okay. So tumble dry is definitely the way forward then.
It's definitely the best. Yes.
I can't remember who came up with the idea of the tumble dryer sheet. I really can't, because Groovy, obviously I was familiar with the Groovy system when Barbara launched it.
I think we've been using tumble dryer sheets for a long time.
Yeah. I can't remember, but it's just so easy, isn't it? Because it's that one application, as you say, and then you're good to go.
Yeah. Right, if I turn that over, you can see the parts that I've started doing, okay?
And you can really see that top one, that petal on the left, you can really see sort of the lines appearing now, can't you?
Yeah. So shall I give it another one coat now? But I would not do this. Right here on the back. I wouldn't do this normally, but if I give it another coat, then you can see some
where you need to be heading.
So I'm still using the 4.5.
It's amazing watching it sort of come to life, because that's what it is when you think about it. It's just a line art, isn't it?
Yes.
And all of a sudden you're introducing that character and that depth quite simply just with a ball tool. I say quite simply. I haven't done mine yet, but do you know what I mean? It's sort of, it is that thing, and to have the tuition from you and to be able to go back and watch it again and again and again. Yeah.
And if you think, I need to soften that a little bit, so you haven't quite gone down far enough, you can go back in with a 6mm ball tool and just take it down a little bit further. You can always go, you can interchange, and go back and soften it a little bit. But I think I've got too much grey in there, just softened it now.
And sometimes it's all about the finishing, isn't it? Right, so there's a question. I obviously missed it coming up. Gilly's just texted me. Is there anything else you can use instead of a tumble dry sheet? I know some people with the scent of it, it's like the Dorso oil. Some people can't use the Dorso oil because of the fragrance. Apart from Pergasoft, is there anything else that you can think of?
You can use a candle.
Candle.
Yeah, I can't think of anything else.
I know back in the day, this sounds really horrible. I know when you used to have scoreboards that had patterns in them, and you had your piece of card down, and you was using embossing tool. I suppose maybe similar to like the brass rubbing, those type of stencils, the metal
Yeah,
ones,
yeah.
and you had to push into it with the card, and you used to take the embossing tool back there, and you'd either scratch your head with it because the natural oils from your hair,
Oh yes, yes, you could. Yeah,
or even worse was down the side of the
side
nose
of your
because the
nose.
side of the nose was quite
Yes,
oily.
yes, you could. Yeah. Well, if you're not sharing your tools with anybody else, I
No.
suppose. I mean, if you're somewhere where you're stuck and you haven't got anything, then needs must. Is it
And
not?
it's right. I couldn't do that now because I haven't got any hair.
So there, we've got another layer. Okay.
Beautiful. It really does stand out from the other ones where especially when you look at it on the back, it stands out more prominently because obviously that's where it's still softest at the moment, isn't it?
Yes. Yeah. And you know when you're doing this and you're coming to the end and you've put all your next week we'll put all our we'll do the finishing touches. I'll show you how to finish it off. And then you start to rub out your pencil lines or pen lines or your ink lines, whatever you've got. It's quite
Okay.
transformational. It looks really, really lovely. It's it sort of brings it to life, you know.
Well,
That's
Barb
the
was
best.
talking about that yesterday in the shack, wasn't she, with the finishing off and the sort of
Yeah,
I mean that beautiful gold leaf technique. That was so clever, that gold
lovely,
leaf.
isn't it?
I
Yeah.
would never have thought of taking that gold leaf glue and watering it down. I would have just, well, there's a pot of glue, there's my brush, I'm just going to use it. But
No, I would never. No.
no, it was amazing to see the difference on sort of just taking the glue as it is and then watering it down. And then
Yeah.
Barb said in her blog yesterday that she tried it with the sticky ink when she had some time, and that worked just as well because the sticky ink is more fluid.
Yes. I wonder if that would work on parchment though, if you watered the sticky ink down, because it's the lack of water content in the sticky ink that makes it so good on parchment.
Yeah, so I don't suppose you would need to water that down, would you? Because it's
No, I
so
don't think so.
fluid. I mean, if
Yeah.
it was Perga glue, I suppose that would be the equivalent. You'd have to sort of dilute the water down
Yes.
the Perga glue.
Yeah. Yeah.
But then, as you say, if you got too much moisture in it, then that's
Yeah.
likely to cause buckling. But I suppose that's why the sticky ink was designed.
Yes. Yeah. It's great stuff, the sticky ink. You
Yeah.
can use it with anything. So when you're doing a flower like this one, yeah, there comes a point where you're going to have to stop doing those back ones,
Right.
so that they
So that they sit in the background, you mean?
sit in the background, and then those are, you wouldn't do those the same as you would do those
Because they're further away,
further
so
away.
they're less prominent.
Yeah, that's right. And this sits in the background. So you're
Yes.
going to have to decide then where, if you look at that one, those are quite bright, and those are you've got to stop at some point. So you
Yeah.
have to then start to be selective about where you're putting your embossing. Okay. I've forgotten where I am now. It's very easy to forget where you are.
Oh, I know. I forget where I am at times, and but that's not with white work. Oh, it's been a really sort of busy as well. I've had real fun this morning because I've been prepping for our one-day special that we're launching. Barbara and I are launching tomorrow evening on
Right.
Craft Store, and Barb gave a sneaky peek of the beautiful doodle frame it dies. Last year on our birthday event on the Craft Store, we launched the squares and the circles, and you've used those in that beautiful sample you've got there, Linda.
Yeah. So
And
you're going to show us, because I'll give you time to show now, Paul. So if you get 2 coats on this now, and then we can do a little bit more next week.
Okay.
We can do
Yeah,
a little bit more
perfect.
of the finishing off and move down the tools a bit. What do you think?
Yeah, that's brilliant.
What do you think? Yeah?
Sounds like a
Okay.
plan.
There we are then. Okie doke.
Super. Switch back to, there we go. Oh, wrong camera. Okay. Yeah, so Barb was say yesterday showcasing those beautiful, and in that sample you've got there, Lindsay, you've used the squares and the circles, haven't you? And it just, it's all about enhancing and finishing off. Let me switch you back to the other camera so you can see full screen. So it's all about that finishing off. You've got that beautiful piece of artwork, and then how do I attach it so you can create apertures? But those doodle dies, you've used both. You've used both the aperture element, which is the square part that creates the aperture within the card blank to reveal the little white hearts behind. And then you've used the its frames in the circle to create what we call a floppy element.
It's lovely to use. And you've always got trouble attaching parchment to your card. And these are perfect for that. And if you look, on this one, I cut one of the apertures out in black, and one of the frames out in black, and one of the frames out in white. And all I did was offset it a little bit. So you've got, in some of them, you've got the pink of the parchment showing through, and then the little dots within the hearts. So it's offset. And I thought that gave a lovely effect. And then I used an ordinary card, and I put a piece of white card behind it so that it reflected the white hearts that were in that one.
Yeah, it's beautiful. Well, tomorrow on the craft store, we're launching the rectangles and the ovals. So I've got these here. Let's have a quick sneaky peek. So I've been having a play with them because we're prepping for the TV. So we've got the what I'm going to do, I'm going to swap you around onto that screen. There we go. So this is the nested rectangle doodle frames. So this is one big die. And when you run this through the machine, what you end up with, hang on, let me just grab my bag of goodies. Let me do it on the white one, is that you get individual frames, just like that circle one. So they're the same designs as the squares and the circles, but just in rectangles. So you get what we call, Barbara and I, these are like the floppy bits. These are your individual pieces. Then we've repeated the same thing where you've got your nested rectangle heart doodle. And the reason it's called the heart doodle is because of the outer frame. Okay. And then you've got the rest of the designs on the second one, which is the scallop. So we've got those in the rectangle and also in the oval. Now, for some reason, back in the day when we first introduced, so it's the same principle of both of those, but for some reason, when we introduced our fresh cut dies back in the day, when we had our basic nested shapes like the square, the rectangle, and the circle, we never did an oval. I don't know why. We did the oval in the Pico, but never in a basic die. So now we've got the nested oval dies as well. And these work perfectly, obviously, with the Pico dies to create that extra layer, and also with the oval doodle die. And I've been working so hard this morning, Liz. I've been doing so much colouring. Let me just show. So look at this. Isn't this beautiful? So this one, what I've done, I've used the aperture die cut into the piece of card. Or basically, it's this that comes in with the pack that I've just die cut the aperture in, and then it's just on a pink piece of pink parchment behind it.
Isn't that lovely?
Okay. So that's that design in the rectangle, but now look at it in the oval. And now that I've got the nested oval dies, I can create that thin edge all the way around. Let me bring it in on this one so you could sort of really see. So I die cut the aperture element first and then put the nested oval die over the top and then cut it out. Wow. So you've got that very thin frame there. Okay, that it gets even better because then I went to the next one down and used the rose and did the rectangle, but the same design in the oval. That's and then beautiful. This this was a clincher for me. You know that all these floppy little bits that you can cut out from card or paper or parchment. So what I did, I love this one. So this
Oh,
purple frame is a floppy bit. It's one of
oh,
those pieces cut out in parchment, die cut in parchment, and then I use perga glue behind to attach it.
isn't
And
that
then
beautiful?
I did it in the rectangle. So
Wow,
when you have a look, you've got that really beautiful finishing, but it looks so luxurious,
that's
doesn't it?
beautiful.
And
Two
so,
little prints, Paul.
yeah, they do. I'm gonna sell Linda's artwork. But do you know what? When you're working, when you've spent that amount of time on doing that beautiful piece that you've created, like that circle card that you've done, you want it to have that luxurious finish to it. You want it to stand out. So these beautiful set of dies, they enhance your work and they add that, as Barb was talking about yesterday, that finishing touch. You can
Yeah,
use brads to attach it. You could put an aperture in a card and attach it as well. But just by doing those dies, it really is. I mean,
they're elegant, aren't they? They're so
I was
elegant.
really impressed with the squares and the circles. But
Yes,
now to have the ovals and the rect, I think the ovals are my favourite out of the two,
yeah, I think
because they
so.
give that beautiful cameo look to it.
Yeah, yeah.
So yeah,
Look,
so we're launching those tomorrow at 6 o'clock on the craft store. And then what else have we got coming up then? Barb's back in the shack on Thursday at 10 o'clock. I'm continuing on the craft store. She can't be in two places at once. So 8 o'clock on the craft store on Thursday in the morning. Then the shack at 10 o'clock. Then I'm back on the craft store at 12. Then I'm back on at 4 for final call. And then on Friday, I'm doing a show on Create and Craft.
oh,
I'm taking some of our dies on, our beautiful botanical dies, and I've got a show at 11:15 on Create and Craft.
lovely.
So
Busy.
a busy few days, but you know what? It's all good fun. And
Good.
when I start playing with these beautiful dies, it's not work really. It is, as I just said, it's playing. It really, really is.
They're great to have in your stash, though, aren't they?
So, oh yeah, definitely.
Good essentials.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I can't believe that hour's gone by so quick again, Linda. It
Oh,
just
yeah, no, we've gone.
today, I can't believe it's 11 o'clock already, and
Yeah.
yeah. So
And now
so
we're pushing an embossing tool.
but
Yeah,
that's the thing, that's what people are here for, and it's
yeah,
great to have this to go back to so that when I get some quiet time, I can go back and I can learn, because obviously I'm watching, but I'm reading and everything else. So it's nice that I've got this to go back to and work as well to
yeah,
learn and improve what my technique as well.
yeah.
So as usual, thank you very much, Linda.
Pleasure.
I will see you. So we'll see each other again next
Next
Tuesday,
Tuesday, yeah.
and then yeah, who knows what's going to happen come next Tuesday. But as usual, thank you so much, Linda. Thank you, everybody at home, for joining us. Don't forget, if you've tuned in for the first time today, go back onto our YouTube channel and you can watch all the previous episodes. So I hope everyone's enjoyed today, because I know I have. And we look forward to seeing you again next week.
Thank you, Paul.
All right.
Thank you,
Thanks,
everybody.
Linda. I'll
All right,
see you
bye.
next week.
Bye.
Bye, everybody.